Hey guys, it's Choco the Chocobo here, and in this video we're going to be talking about the recipes comment section here. So, what does this include? This is, to me, it's like the arcane section. It's kind of like a bunch of the rejects from the other sections. Um, so, in the recipe section you have the support, caster, weapons, armor, artifacts. Artifacts being like attack modifiers and stuff like that. Um, this basically is just all the stuff that doesn't fit into there. A lot of it tends to be like more basic in terms of the item components aren't terribly expensive. They're low tier, so they're pretty accessible. But you'll see as we go along. So let's get right into it. Let's start off with a magic wand. Magic wand, you take the magic stick and like the ironwood branches that you may have, and you slap it together with a recipe, and you get the magic wand. It's a 15 charge max cap as opposed to 10, which is pretty handy. You get a fair bit for it. Now, that said, again, it depends on whether or not you're leaning against someone who's spammy and all that stuff, but you have to decide for yourself. Do I want to use a magic wand to condense my inventory probably, as opposed to do I want a magic wand for that extra 75 HP mana regen? Because chances are you probably won't even get it to that number of charges, and frankly, you probably would have been able to use your magic stick and enough to have compensated for it. So, mostly a condensing item, but it's there for you if you want it. The Wraith, Null, and Bracer, as I have just to preview them all now, they're your tier 2 items kind of combining with each other. So you have to have a circlet and then one of the other three. So either slippers, gauntlets, or mantle. And what you do is you combine them and you get with a recipe, and the costs for the recipes are all different here, 150, 145, and 190. But basically, they just give you those stats combined, and they add on like an extra 3 damage, as well as giving you 1 extra stat point to each. So, it's not bad, it's not great, it's kind of in between. For the cost, it's more of a condensing item again, just making sure they have more inventory space. Would not recommend going either way for any of these items as a standalone. Do note that they do build into other things as well, so the Wraith Band can build into the Ring of Aquila, the Null can build into a Dagon, and the Bracer can build into a Drum. But those items will be in different videos, but do keep that in mind if you are aiming for those items or if you are kind of like curious as to what they do. Now, the Poor Man's Shield is an interesting item. What it does is it gives you the Stout Shield's block. So if you remember back, it has a 60% chance of 2010. It keeps those block chances, but in addition, it takes the Slippers of Agility, slaps them together for you, and gives you 100% hero block. So what that means is that whenever an enemy hero auto attacks you, right? So like let's say that a drought shoots you with an arrow. Let's say it did 100 damage. It will always block 20 of that damage if you're a melee hero and 10 if you're ranged. And that's 100% rate, so that helps you stay alive from like kind of pokes and stuff like that, which can be a big deal for you if you're having a lot of pressure being put in your lane or whatever the case may be. Definitely not an item to like strive for, I would say, but an item that could be good and helpful to have if you're an agility hero, you already have the slippers, and you're like, you know what, I'm not really going to build them to Wraith Bands, so let's go ahead and do this instead. Again, a good condensing item, can be decent as a defensive item, wouldn't recommend it to like go out of your way for, but it's there. Okay, so Soul Ring, I'm just going to show you guys real quick. So what the Soul Ring does, oops, just accidentally used it. Okay. Soul Ring, you take the Ring of Regen and Sage's Mask, and you combine them to get the Soul Ring here, and it's just the two things basically combined. You get 1 extra HP regen, but that's kind of meh. But what it does is you sacrifice 150 HP to get 150 mana, but that's 150 mana that's not really there, and you'll see what I mean in a moment here. And that mana lasts for 10 seconds. So I'm going to cast a spell here. My mana goes down. I'm going to use Soul Ring to get that back. So everything's kind of just working as expected. But what's going to happen is, because it's temporary mana, it's not really there. So what's going to end up happening is that's going to drain back. It's going to revert me back to the old mana pool. That said, now let's say that, well, I can't really show you until 15 seconds has passed. But if you're missing mana and you use Soul Ring and then cast a spell with that mana pool, it won't detract from it. So the idea here is that Soul Ring can be very helpful on heroes like Skeleton King. It guarantees your revival will always be there in terms of mana cost. It can be helpful for low mana heroes, but they have good amounts of HP regen. You can be used in addition to the Tranquil Boots to kind of keep yourself sustained and keep yourself mana happy. but something definitely to keep in mind. So here I'm going to use that soul ring again, pop my Fisher, and when you see the timer run down, you're going to notice that my mana pool goes it goes back to where it was basically, because it's going to cost a little bit less than what I had. So handy. It's a nice little thing to have. Keep that in mind. We're going to skip the boots for now, and we're going to be talking about that later. So let's go right on to Oblivion Staff. Oblivion Staff. Now, I kind of failed to mention this, the poor man's shield part, but basically there are two ways to make these recipes, right? You can either have all the components, gather them all up, and it'll automatically assemble for you if it has no recipe, like the Oblivion Staff, poor man's shield, stuff like that does. Or it will require a recipe, so like the soul ring, for example, right? You have to gather the components together, and then you have to use the recipe to kind of forge them into one thing. Pretty important. If it tends to be that if you can automatically assemble them together, you can right click on the item. So let's see if I don't know if I can do it with the Oblivion Staff, can I? No, I can't. Let's see an item. What would be an item I could? Tranquil. So if it automatically assembles, sometimes you have the ability to disassemble it, which can be pretty handy. You get all your components back. So keep that in mind. Certain items can, certain items can't. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head. But Oblivion Staff gives you attack speed, damage. It ups your mana regen from 50 to 75, which is handy, and gives you 6 extra intelligence. Now, you may be thinking about this like, why would you want that if you're an intelligence hero? And generally the answer is this. If you're an intelligence hero, unless you're going for the refresh orb, you probably won't be getting this. Or if you're going to be like an intelligence hero that uses attack damage stuff, and like your auto attack is like important to you, maybe getting an Orchid, or maybe even if you just need the silence. But heroes that tend to get this are building Orchid and Malevolence. You'll see some heroes get it for the refresher orb, but we won't talk about that in this video. We'll talk about it in the future, so bear that in mind. But Oblivion Staff as a standalone item isn't bad. Just is a little bit weird in terms of it doesn't really fit directly under intelligence or anything like that. So that's there. Perseverance. All this is, you take the Ring of Health, the Void Stone, you slap them together, you up the mana regen by 25%, you add 10 damage, and that's what it is. Automatically assembles. It's a component for other recipes, so keep that in mind. It's not bad at all in terms of it conserves space. You can definitely disassemble this, which is nice. The Hand of Midas. Let's go ahead and show you guys the Hand of Midas. What the Hand of Midas does is it automatically kills a creep, and it gives you 190 gold for it, as well as giving you 2.5 times the experience of what you normally get. You can't use it on Ancient, so none of these guys here or these guys here. Certainly not Roshan, as funny as that would be. But you can use it, get the 190 gold, the extra experience, and it's handy to have to go through jungles and stuff like that. Now you also get the attack speed bonus of the Gloves of Haste, which is the component part, and you double it into the Hand of Midas through the recipe. So keep that all in mind. Generally used if you're having a hard time getting your farm, or if you're going through jungle and you're pretty confident that this will help you go through it faster, increase the gold amount you'll get from creep camps, stuff like that. So that's the Hand of Midas. Now we finally get to talk about the different kinds of boots.
Yes.
I'm going to start back from phase boots. So what phase boots does is that this gives you an increased movement speed from your 50 from the boots of speed up to 55. So let me show you what the components are here. And you also get the damage from the blades of attack. But the real thing to notice here is the ability called phase. You may think to yourself, wow, 55, that seems like a really low movement speed amount. But in truth, it's not that bad. Let me go ahead and drop these boots here.
Here I come.
So they don't interfere with my scientific studies. What it does is, you see how I get creep blocked a little bit? I can't like run through them really well. If I phase, I can run straight through them, as well as giving me a hefty amount of movement speed bonus whenever I'm phasing. So very handy. It makes you move pretty darn quickly, so that's a very strong item to have. If you want to get into engagements or run away faster, this is the item of choice for you. Power Treads is a different kind of item, which it takes your boots of speed. It gives you the 55 movement speed similar to the phase boots, but it has no way for you to move faster. In exchange, you attack faster, so it actually acts as if you have 2 Gloves of Haste instead of 1. In addition, you also get stats from it. So you can build this with any tier 3, so Belt of Strength, Band of Elven Skin, Robe of Magi, any of those can be used instead of Belt of Strength. and you can use it to kind of switch between different stat points depending upon what you need. So as a strength here, you may say I just want and need strength, but you may find yourself wanting to use intelligence as well, and you can toggle the item by clicking on it or using your hotkey, and you can change it into different forms. So I can go from strength, intelligence to agility, and this order is always the same. So you can kind of strategically use that. It's called toggling. So let's say here I'm thinking to myself, oh, I want to go ahead and cast a spell on these creeps here, but I'm kind of low on mana. I pop it into intelligence, I get a little boost to my mana, and I go ahead and switch it back. It's not uncommon to see this, but it's a little bit hard to use, but something to definitely aspire to be able to do. And it's a strong item to have if you're going kind of not for the movement speed, but more for maximizing your auto attack damage. Definitely a strong item there. The Boots of Travel is a little bit different in that it doesn't require another component part, but it requires a recipe. So as you can see here is just Boots of Speed and a 2,000 cost Boots of Travel recipe. What this does is it gives you 100 movement speed all the time, which is incredibly fast. I already have it kind of active, so you can see I'm moving pretty quickly. But more importantly, it has a built-in TP scroll that can also target units. So anything that's not a hero, that's on your side, that's a unit, you can basically target. I don't think there are any exceptions to this rule. I might be wrong, but basically if it's a unit, not a ward, because wards don't count, but any unit, so like Nature's Prophets trees will work, Necronomicon stuff will work. You can use Boots of Travel to warp to them, which is very handy. If the unit dies, however, you can't warp to that unit, I think. So let me go ahead and test it out here, except it resets the aggro, so I have to wait again. Come on. Bait him to death. But you can move to any unit, structure. It's very handy. So you can see here, it just kind of cancels itself. But you can warp to a unit very easily. Very helpful for kind of following your lane after your towers have fallen. And the cooldown rate is actually a little bit shorter than the actual TP scroll is. 65 versus 60, so that's something to keep in mind. Very helpful on heroes like Tinker, just because it can abuse the ability to refresh those cooldowns. It can just kind of warp around the map, but very handy. Again, you can move it onto towers and stuff. Do notice though that I warp right onto the tower. I can't positionally change it as opposed to the teleport scroll, so that is there. But anyways, guys, that ends this kind of video episode of the basics tutorial for common recipes. So let me know what you think about this episode below in the comments. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, you want me to redo it, I'd be happy to do that for you guys. But other than that, that's all for now, and I will see you in other videos. Goodbye.